Hi, I'm Terry Murphy with the Women's Wisdom Network, Senior Editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph. And today in the men's room, we have the man. Daniel Burrus is considered one of the world's leading futurists on global trends and disruptive innovation. You've been a disruptor since the beginning, Dan.
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah,
Since the first,
absolutely.
since the first time I saw you with doing a robot at NSA, I knew, OMG, this man was awesome. He's a strategic advisor to executives from Fortune 500 companies and using his anticipatory business mode. Now, we're going to talk more about that because that's your new book. And this is really a way to develop game-changing strategies based on proven methodologies for capitalizing on technology innovations for future impact. He's an author. He's 7 books. He's such an overachiever. New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller for Flash Foresight, one of my faves. Here it is. You can tell I have little stickies and yellows all over. This goes back to what, 2011?
That was 2011 exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And Techno Trends, which was the first one, was 1993.
yeah. And actually, that was book number 5. But yes, you're right.
Well, apparently my library is deficient. Okay, but
Yeah.
we're also want to talk about your anticipatory organization because this thing flew to the top of the list. Um, it's a syndicated writer with you're a syndicated writer with literally millions of monthly readers. How many on LinkedIn? 1 point what followers?
I'm coming up on 1.3 million followers on LinkedIn, and
I
yeah,
think
that,
I think that's way less than I think that's way more than Beyonce, by the way. Uh,
I don't know about that.
Founding 6 businesses, 4 of which were U.S. national leaders in their first year. I mean, really, whatever your mom was her diet when you were being, yeah, it had to be outstanding. The New York Times has referred to you as one of the 3 top business gurus ever. So where are all those nerds from high school now? Really, think
I don't
about it.
know. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Well, leadership has been one of your key elements from a technology standpoint. And I was teasing you about the robots, but nobody even heard the word hardly robot except like in sci-fi. And that was way back at our NSA meetings at National Speakers
Yeah, it
Association.
was back in the early 80s, actually.
Yes, it really was. That's about
I had one of the most advanced robots on the planet at the time, and I was showing it to people to help them get a little look at the future, because the future is there to see if you know where to look.
and that's why we have you here at in the men's room. So tell us a little bit about obviously the future changes while we inhale, but for some reason you've been able to be on the bleeding edge, and I say that in all sincerity, of future innovations and the disruptions that came. I mean, clearly from both books. So tell us about what's happening now and what we can anticipate, and then you can go into this because this is awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, that out of the number of businesses I've started, this one I've had the longest. So now I'm in 37 years. And that's with thousands of articles and books about the future. And I've had a track record of being right. And one of the keys, Terry, is I leave out the parts I can be wrong about. But it's amazing how much you can be right. And I think the 2 most important moments in a human's life is the day you're born and the day you find out why you're born. And I'm really lucky I found out long ago I was put on the planet to teach. So rather than just make a lot of money and tell people a few trends and say, hey, good luck, it's been a life's passion to teach others how to see the future. And instead of it just being unknown, and as you said in teeing this up, it seems to be changing all the time. What I've found is that all trends are either a hard trend based on a future fact that will happen, or it's a soft trend based on an assumption that may or may not happen. So 2 big points I want to make in the beginning of this for all of our listeners and viewers. Number 1, a trend by itself is academic. Who cares? That's why a lot of people don't talk about trends, because some happen and some don't. This methodology helps you separate the wheat from the chaff. That will happen versus that might happen. The second thing is a trend without an opportunity attached to it is an academic study. Frankly, I'm bored and so are you. But when you have a trend and you have an opportunity for you, you now burst it into action, because I want action. I don't want just an academic discussion. So hard trend, the advantage of a hard trend, it gives you certainty. Even now, during this pandemic, it gives you certainty, which gives you the confidence to make a bold move, because you can actually be confident that these hard trends will happen. And by the way, those are the disruptions that haven't disrupted yet. And that turns disruption into a choice. I mean, most people, Terry, think disruption is something negative, and that's only because it happens to you. Now you got to do something again. But does Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, see disruption as negative? No, it's all the people he's disrupting. I want every single person on this podcast, every one of us, to become positive disruptors, creating the transformations that need to happen to make the world better, to increase innovation and results. And that you can do. And it's not that difficult. So is it a hard trend based on a future fact, or a soft trend? And I like both. The opportunity of a soft trend, you don't like it, you can change it. Opportunity of a hard trend, you can see disruption and change before it hits. So I'll give you a chance to ask me some questions, but at least we teed it up with a way that you can actually see the future rather than just passively receive it. Because I think my life's work is getting as many people as possible to be anticipatory and actively shape the future, rather than just be a passive receiver of it.
Well, that's really distinctive, because we've talked about hard and soft trends. I think if I was listening to this and I wasn't necessarily good at this, tell me what a soft trend, give me an example of a soft trend, and then maybe a hard trend, and that'll help give relevance to that information.
Absolutely, that's perfect, thanks. Well, on the hard trend there's 3 categories of hard trends, which makes it not that hard. The first category is demographics. For example, in the United States, now you've probably heard the phrase there's 78 million baby boomers. Actually, there's only 68 because 10 million have died already. We're on the other end of it. We're not just being born now, we're on the other side of the spectrum. So there's 68 million baby boomers, and you know what? They're not going to get younger, they're going to get older. And when we know that, we can predict some future problems that we could pre-solve, or we could let play out, and we could also see some future opportunities that may not have been there before. A quick example might be a lot of people love to go boating, but as you get older, it gets kind of hard to launch the boat. Might even get kind of hard to get in the boat. So if we created the easy launch trailer for seniors and made it really well, would we have a growing demographic every year of potential buyers? Well, yeah, we know that because there's a hard trend of people getting older. And would we know which countries to export that product to? Sure, I wouldn't take it to certain countries that have young populations. I would take it to aging populations. In other words, you can innovate with low risk. So you have demographics as a category. And it's not just about baby boomers, it's about all of those different demographics and how they view the future. And another thing that most don't understand about demographics, when we talk about, for example, millennials or Gen Y or Gen Z, we think that's how they're going to be their entire life. No, they're actually aging. They're actually going to have life cycles just like all of us. So, I mean, at one time, baby boomers, I mean, we weren't thinking about retirement. I mean, you know, we were thinking about graduating from college. So you see, we have different life phases. By the way, that's predictable. And there are different opportunities for all those generations. All right, so demographics is one. Number 2, this will really surprise most of you, government regulations. And you would say, well, how can that be a certainty? How can that be a future fact? And the reality is, oh yeah, for example, because of politics, there are a lot of regulations you can't predict that'll come out because they'll be debatable. But when you use the hard trend methodology, you can actually tell for certain which ones will. For example, will we have more regulation on cybersecurity? Oh, yes. Why? Because there's some hard trends at play that politics can't ignore. Then there are some other things that we can debate. So the reality is a big list of things that I don't know about the future. A big list of things that I'm uncertain about doesn't empower me. I don't care about those. I care more about the things I do know, the things I can see, the things I am certain about. Just like a list of things that I can't do doesn't empower me, but a list of things I can do does. So I want the right kind of list. So when it comes to government regulation, Elon Musk has done well with government regulation. Every single business he has started from the very first one was funded by government regulation. You see, there's money in them there hills. And most of us, by the way, this is true for real estate, it's true for any industry. So if you look at regulation instead of what you don't like about it, forget that. You'll have an endless list. Instead, start with what you do like about it and look for the money, and you'll find it. The third category of hard trends, again, there's only three, is technology. And technology changes how we live, work, and play. It transforms business processes and buying and selling. So it's really good to understand that. And it's amazing how predictable that technology is. So I'm going to come back on that with you in a little bit to give you some examples of more specifics. I'm going to predict you'd ask me anyway. And what I'll do right now is give you the other part of your question, soft trends and some examples. I love both. I love soft trends. If sales are going down, and they've been going down for the last 3 years. And it looks like they're going to go down further in 2021, given all the things that are happening. Is that a hard trend future fact, or could you do something about that? Well, it's actually a soft trend. You could ride it out, which unfortunately most people do because they think it's written, but it's not. You could change that. You could do something about that, or you can write it out. Let's take another soft trend in the United States, because I know we have a global audience here, but in the US, healthcare costs have been going up for decades. Up, 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 up. For decades. That's a trend. Is that a hard trend or a soft trend? The answer, it's a soft trend. You see, if you think of it as a hard trend, which most politicians think it is, they don't try to stop it or change it. What they try to do is find new ways of paying for the mess the aging baby boomers will create as they end up getting later in life. But if we realize that it's a soft trend, you don't like it, you can change it. For example, we could use blockchain to bring in a ecosystem of our US healthcare system, which has almost no transparency and very little trust, where an aspirin can cost $30. And if you would have known that, you would have had your spouse bring it. And that knee replacement you were going to have by the same manufacturer in the same exact size can vary in price by 500% in the same hospital network, but you didn't know that because you weren't aware. If we use blockchain to bring transparency, trust, and more security to the healthcare ecosystem, you could flush billions of dollars out annually. And that's just one of dozens of technologies we could use. My point is, soft trends, don't like them? Good, change them. Hard trends lets you see disruptions before they hit so that you can be the disruptor if you'd like, or let yourself get disrupted. And you can see, there's another big one, problems before they happen and pre-solve them. How many people listening right now have said, well, I knew that was going to happen? And I would say, then why did you let it? You see, if we know a problem is going to happen for our company, our firm, our organization, or our customer, it gives us the opportunity to, when it's a customer's problem that will happen, a new service or product you can offer. Or if it's one that will hit us, we don't have to have it. And I'm going to spill the beans on a big research report that I have not published yet, but I'm going to give everyone here a special preview of it.
Oh, please do.
I will. This is the survey of 1,000 CEOs all over the world in different industries. And it is not a written survey. It was a phone call survey to make sure we could get good answers. So it took some time to do it, but we wanted it to be highly accurate. And the question is, what is the biggest problem you're currently facing? And once they told us what that was, then we asked them the second key question. Could you have seen that ahead of time and pre-solved it, or was it impossible to see ahead of time? And we got 93% saying we could have seen it ahead of time and pre-solved it. We just weren't looking. We didn't know how to look, or we just weren't looking. What does that tell me? It tells me the biggest problem every one of you will be having 12 months from now, you could clearly identify and pre-solve so you didn't have it in the first place, allowing you to move forward faster and not get disrupted and held up by that problem. So these are important things to consider.
That's a brilliant way for us to see where we need to really look at our businesses. We're so often working in the business that we don't work on the business. And that was just quoted in the book 2030, where we talk about how, you had the disruption, but instead of looking at it as a negative, that roadblock forced you to look at options that were never there before. So, you think about groceries. I mean, a million years ago, yeah, they used to get delivered to your house. And milk, we used to have a milkman. Well, now we don't. Now, guess what? Milk's being delivered to your house because, maybe COVID, which was, a tough innovator, a tough disruption, created innovation, which created jobs. So I think a lot of people need to look at that opportunity instead of going into the rabbit hole, like you said, and let sales go down, to go into the roadblock and say, okay, this gives us opportunities to see more, which is what this book probably addresses beautifully. What made
you? The book is more than just about hard trends and soft trends. There are, different. There are ways to transform innovation, transform culture, transform results, all sorts of things that are inside of there. But let me address something you just mentioned, because you opened up a great subject just a few seconds ago, and I want to address that, and that is the pandemic itself. What the 2020 pandemic did, if you look at not all of the people that died and all of the bad things, because when something bad happens, something good also happened. You got to look at both sides. Just like if something good happens, something bad happened, you better look at that too. And if we look at the positive of the pandemic, what did it do? It forced us all to change. You see, people don't like change. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes money. Gee, I got to change again. And businesses and organizations of all sizes, they're run by humans who don't like to change. In other words, businesses don't like to change either. So what did the pandemic do on a global level? It forced us all to change. We were forced to change. And because we were forced to lock down, we were forced to go digital in a new way. Not just digital in terms of working from your home, digital in how you buy things, digital in terms of companies thinking, I got to get in the cloud. I wasn't in the cloud before, but now I got to get in the cloud because all my people are working at home. We need a virtual private network so we have security. We need blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, you've got acceleration. So let me share with you a little bit of something else that people will find interesting. And if they go to Burrus.com, they can find articles on this, but let me just give you a couple of examples. I just happen to bring a few with me. And this is about the pandemic acceleration of technology. So we've had exponential change driven by technology for a long time. And that's 2 becomes 4 becomes 8. It creates a hockey stick of change. And right now we're in the holy cow phase before the pandemic. The pandemic, by forcing us to change, was an accelerator to those digital trends by huge amounts. Let me just read some specifics based on research that I've done and have been publishing. E-commerce accelerated 10 years in 5 months. 10 years. Now, if you think about it, well, we were all locked down. How are you going to buy things? You're going to buy it online. Everybody around the world had to do that. You know what? 10 years in 5 months. Boom. But we have more than that. Telemedicine, virtual office visits. 5 years and 5 months. Let's face it, they could have done that 10 years ago, but nobody was. Now you want to see a doctor? And you're probably going online first. Teleeducation, remote instruction. Well, hey, that was 8 years and 5 months. Remote working, 10 years and 5 months. Here, let's go to a couple of others. Virtualization of products and service, 5 years. Adaptive and predictive cybersecurity, 5 years and 5 months. I've got a big list. I won't go through it all now, but here's what that means. When you have that much acceleration in digital technology trends. You know what you got? An acceleration of opportunity. Have you been too busy to notice? I'm talking to all of you out there. Have you been too busy crisis managing the what's going on instead of opportunity managing? More opportunity than we ever had before. There's more opportunity right now than ever before. I know we're all around the world, we're getting locked down once again. Hey, let's not get sidetracked by that. Let's
Well,
look at how we can see the world differently.
well, look at the jobs. Look at the opportunities. I mean, people had cars; they were depreciating asset. Now, some of those people are able to drive other people. You don't need a cab or a license and all that crazy stuff. Look at people are buying peanut butter from Amazon, where you typically would go to a store. You're right about the whole health, especially with COVID. Being able to report symptoms to a doctor and see them and show them and that kind of thing. That's remarkable. But you said something that I just want to punctuate, and that is it literally forced us. So that wasn't optional. So that meant that now the playing field is becoming a little more even, because you can't say, well, I never bought peanut butter from Amazon because you can't.
So let me give you a couple of examples to help all of us to think a little bit outside of the box that we built for ourselves. I mean, you might not be able to get out of the box, but I'd like it to at least have glass walls so you can see out of the box. So in this case, in March and April, when we first had the pandemic officially on a global level, I was getting a lot of calls from CEOs wanting help. And one of the things was I got contacted by a group of convenience store owners. Now, these are all over the country. So it was a big group, and they wanted to get in touch with me because no one was driving. Now, remember, it's different than this last summer has been in this hemisphere. But in March and April, the streets were pretty bare because we didn't know much about COVID at the time, and we were just locked down. So convenience stores rely on people coming in for gas. No one was coming in. So they were saying, we're going to have to lay people off all over the country. We're going to have to shut down. What would you advise us to do, Dan? And what I said is, well, I think you got to be hiring people like crazy, because I think instead of being a convenience store, you need to shift to become a necessity store. And you need to change your product mix a little bit and have a little less tobacco and have a little more aspirin and hot food. And since no one's coming to you, why don't you get all those Lyft and Uber drivers that aren't taking people to restaurants and bars and have them deliver your products to them? And instead of just having the people that used to drive to you, which is only part of the population, you've now expanded it to nursing homes and everybody else, because now you're a necessity store. And by the way, when the pandemic is over, maybe you'll never go back to being a convenience store. Maybe you'll like being a necessity store. Well, anyway, to make a longer story short, within about 45 days of that, I had one of them tell me how they hired just one of the big chains, 25,000 additional employees in their chain because of doing that. So I'm just saying, shift how you think. Let me give you one more quick example, because you see what I'm doing is helping you to realize you got to think in new ways. You need what I call an anticipatory mindset instead of a reactionary mindset. And by the way, agility is not anticipatory, it's an agile mindset. Because agility is about reacting as quickly as you can after a disruption occurs, reacting as quickly as you can, as agile as you can after a problem happens or a disruption occurs. And that's one side of the coin, and I'm glad you're all good at that. But it hasn't helped that much, has it? So we need the other side of the coin, and that is how to anticipate problems and pre-solve them, and how to anticipate disruptions so that we can be the positive disruptor. So one more quick example. This is back in March. I got a call because I was doing a webinar, and a guy called me who was the CEO of a chain in LA of a dry cleaning store. And let's face it, people weren't going in with their suits and with their shirts and with their dresses and slacks. So he said, I've got 8 stores. We've been successful for decades. Nobody's coming in. Business is down 95%. We're going to close down. What would you have us do? I bet you already know what I'm going to say. Oh, you need to be hiring people. And he said, what do you mean we got to be hiring people? And I said, well, all you've been doing is working with the same clients you've always had in the same way. And those clients don't need you anymore. Does no one need you? or just your past clients. I said, let's just think for a second. Who's making money right now? And if you might remember, drugstores and grocery stores were packed, and they were paying extra amounts of money. And there were other businesses that were doing extremely well. They were going crazy. So you look at those, what were the biggest problem? Keeping their people safe. So I said, so how about this? First responders, all right, police, so on, they get their uniforms cleaned every couple of weeks. Hey, with COVID, maybe that ought to be getting them cleaned every day or every other day so that they can go home safely. Maybe all of those nurses and doctors, maybe they'd like to have a service to help wash and clean their clothes so when they go home to their family, they're not taking COVID on them. Maybe instead of all those drugstore workers and all those other people that are first line workers that have to go home in the same clothes they wore, maybe since those stores are making more money now and their problem is keeping employees, maybe what they would do is they would want to have a service for that. They just didn't know it's possible you could do that. And by the way, maybe you should make some masks. Anyway, their business thrived. Now, I'm just giving you what the types of things that I teach in my learning systems, the Anticipatory Leader, as well as in my book, The Anticipatory Organization. It's really about mindset. It's about how you think. It's about looking at things in new and different ways so you can see that invisible opportunity.
Wow. I mean, that is so enlightening when you think about all of the opportunities that wouldn't have happened, right? When things were just, kind of going along. Well, in your book, and I do want to talk about the anticipatory organization opportunities that you have, because we get to take you home with us if we want. But you do talk about transform planning, because planning, people are going, how can I plan? I don't know what's going to happen. We're in lockdown. We're in, this. And you talk about disproving a dangerous misconception. Would you mind just elaborating on that for a second?
Well, the big misconception, one of the big ones, is that the future is unpredictable. And I would say, do we know what happens after summer? And the answer is yes, we do. And if the stock market's going down, will it go down to zero and stay there? No, it'll go back up again. And by the way, it'll go back down again. Those are called cycles. There's business cycles, weather cycles, biological cycles. And frankly, most of us are really good at cycles. But the other kind of change is driven by linear. It's not a cycle, it's one way, and it's exponential. And once you get a smartphone, you're not going back to a dumb phone. Once the people in China park their bike and get a car, they're not going back to the bike. Once the people in India get refrigeration for their home, they're not going to say, we don't need refrigeration. These are one-way predictable opportunities and predictable problems. These are one way, and you can see all kinds of things when you learn how to look. So actually, over the decades, I've been teaching executives how to separate hard trends from soft trends, and we've come up with literally thousands and thousands of absolute hard trend certainties with opportunities attached to them. So the idea that you can't predict the future is completely wrong. There's areas you can't see. Good, you should be agile. But
wow.
Here's the power of hard trends, and that is it gives you confidence. It gives you certainty. And personal strategy and business strategy based on uncertainty has high risk. On the other hand, business strategy and personal strategy based on certainty has low risk. And when you start flipping risk around, whether you're in the real estate business or any other kind of business, and you can see disruption before it disrupts, what you start to realize is the risk of not doing it is now bigger than the risk of doing nothing. So it really is a way to completely change how you manage risk, as well as plan for the future.
Dan, this is such good information. It's just so fascinating that you just want to sit down and consume that book. I know that you have some offers for people. I know that this was one of my faves, which is an absolutely free download. And this is Daniel Burrus's Top 25 Technology Hard Trends Shaping 2021. So if somebody just wanted to have a taste of the Burrus experience, they could get this book by going to burrus.com/see the future. And then tell us what else is available.
Well,
in case-
actually, for your podcast, I decided I would try to do something really special. So what I put in there is I'm giving people a hardcover copy, not a digital, hardcover copy of my book if they want it. They have to pay a couple of dollars for shipping, but they're not paying anything for that. And by the way, I'm not making money on that shipping. There's a way in there where you can get the audio and the digital version of the book if you'd like. I'm giving you at no cost that latest list of 25 trends going forward, and as well as giving you take a look at my anticipatory leader learning system, which is an award winner. It's being used by people all over the world to not just react, but to instead learn how to anticipate, and giving you a special offer on that if you're interested. So Burrus, BURRUS.com/see the future. And I've actually put a little bundle of things in there just for you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, because here's what I know. We're a resource distributor here at Realty Times. Our goal is to help people make informed decisions. And this fits absolutely right in. And there's so many people I can't wait to share this book with and some of the opportunities you have. Now, you also write weekly a blog post that is rich in anticipatory. And don't you also have private groups that you meet with, membership groups?
Yeah. And actually, we're doing that through Anticipatory Leader, the learning system. I've got deep dives I do every month, and where I'm, live and people can ask me questions, as well as the online part of the learning system. So it's blended learning. And that's a membership where you can, go in. Hey, you can go in for a month and try it out and see if you like it. So that's, and we've got a low cost on way to get in there because we want to get it to as many people as possible. So I would say that would be a great way to really get a good handle on what's happening. And again, you get me for once a month on that. And then there's some other things we're introducing in 2021 that are new in terms of some special additional learning systems. So if you go to burrus.com, you can find a wide variety of resources.
Well, I just want to, first of all, social proof is always such a good thing because there's lots of information out there, but I just want to familiarize the people that are watching or listening. There's some pretty big heavies that have endorsed this book. William Bender, Lieutenant General CIO of the United States Air Force. Okay, yeah. That's unbelievable. You've got Nito Cobain, of course, who we know is the president of High Point and on the board of BB&T. You've got Howard Putnam, former CEO of Southwest Airlines. John Ryan, president and CEO of the Center for Creative Leadership. I mean, there's some amazing people. Jack Canfield, of course, from Chicken Soup. I don't want to be selective, but I just have to say, you follow greatness, you follow wisdom, you follow people who have where you aspire to be or to be your best. And if you are listening to this and you had a team of any level, being anticipatory is a mindset that is not an option, but a requirement going forward. So if somebody wanted to email you, Dan, what would be the best email address?
Probably office@burrus.com. That would be the best way to do that. And again, Burrus is BURRUS.com. Also, don't forget, Facebook and Twitter. I got something cool I got to tell you about 6-8 months ago on my Twitter, which is, at Daniel Burrus. I've got Elon Musk doing a lot of retweeting of my stuff. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
Well, that is totally cool.
Yeah.
For so many reasons.
Hey, if he likes it, maybe you guys will like it too. So check this stuff out.
It's really interesting about Mr. Musk because he is an immigrant and he has figured out how to build amazing opportunities. And we have to think about that. That's that gift of diversity. That's that gift of collective intellect. I am so glad you brought that up because yes, there are people that definitely want to follow you on Twitter. So
well, and to that point, let me just say real quickly, people like that and Bezos and others, they're not reactionary. No. They're anticipatory. You can do this. You don't see you would say, well, I'm not an Elon Musk. Who says? Actually, our biggest limitations we've got can be found by looking in the mirror in the morning.
Oh boy, don't we address that.
Look in the mirror and you'll see your limitation. So stop thinking that way. See, it's all about mindset. What's going on up here? And if you change your mindset, you can change your results. And my little angle on that is I want you to be anticipatory as well.
That's why we love you, Dan Burrus. I am your number one, well, second biggest fan, because I know you've got some others. We will have you back. And as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this right now, Dan has generously allowed us to publish on Realty Times his weekly posts, which honestly, if you even read those for a week, you're going to be in a much better position. It's going to open your eyes, open your ability to see things differently. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here at Women's Wisdom Network. I want to ask you again, we're going to have you from time to time because I think that, as you know, this stuff changes all the time, but your insights continue to be the most priceless. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again for another segment of the Women's Wisdom Network here at Realty Times. I'm Terry Murphy. Thanks for joining us.